The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave, and I work here at Brake, the road safety charity. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar entitled Helping SMEs to Buy, Lease and Maintain Safe Vehicles. This is one of three seminars and three webinars and one seminar, which is part of our Fleet Safety Engaging Small Businesses with Big Issues series. These are free events for attendees to attend thanks to support from the Department for Transport. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar, and we hope you find it useful. We have another webinar in February and an event in London in March, which are also free to attend. My colleague Ellie will explain more later on. I'd like to thank our speakers as well for their time today. Shortly I will pass over to my colleague Ellie Pearson here at Brake, and she'll explain a little bit about Brake and what we do here at the Road Safety Charity. I will then pass over to Toby Poston from the BVRLA, then Sandra Brandon from the DVSA, and Teresa Keeble from TMJ Interiors. If you have any questions at all during this webinar, then please write a question into the question box, which is on your drop-down menu on your right-hand side. You also have a raise hand icon button. At the moment, all attendees are in listen-only mode, so you are muted, so you can't interact at the moment. But if you do wish to actually ask a question verbally rather than write it down, then please click the raise hand icon, and I can unmute yourself, and you can ask a question to our speakers. There'll be about 5 minutes at the end of each presentation for questions, so obviously, if you've got any questions for Toby, then please direct questions for him at the start. And as I said, the question box is there for your use. Today's webinar is being recorded, and all the presentations will be available on our website afterwards, and we will send you an email with links to these afterwards. So first of all, I will hand over to my colleague Ellie Pearson, who will talk a bit about Brake. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all very much for joining us today. My name's Ellie, and I head up the professional engagement team here at Brake. So as Dave said, before handing you over to our speakers for today, we just wanted to tell you a little bit more about Brake and the work that we do here. We are a UK-based road safety charity working to prevent road crashes and support the victims of road crashes. So as well as working with professionals such as yourselves, we operate a helpline and support services, as well as running awareness-raising campaigns and community engagement events, such as our annual Road Safety Week in November. Through our professional engagement team, we work with professionals such as yourselves, so any companies or organisations with at-work drivers, including grey fleet drivers, to help reduce road risk. We also work with other road safety professionals, such as local authorities and emergency services, to support them in improving road safety. Through our professional engagement team, we run a membership scheme, which is called Brake Professional. Brake Professional is all about sharing fleet safety and road safety best practice across the industry, and we do that by providing networking events for professionals such as yourselves, as well as training, tools and advice specially developed for fleet operators. So Brake Professional membership usually costs up to £155 plus VAT per annum. Thanks to the Department for Transport funding that's allowing us to run these webinars, we are also able to offer all of our attendees today a free Brake Professional membership. So our admin team will be in touch after today's webinar to confirm your membership and tell you a little bit more about it. All of the resources that we offer through Brake Professional, which includes managed guidance reports, online activities that are interactive for your drivers to do. We have victim stories videos and things like posters and leaflets that you can share with your drivers as well. That's all hosted on our website for professionals, which is just brakepro.org. And there is also on there our calendar of events, which lists all of the training opportunities that we have coming up. So please do take a look after today's webinar. As Dave mentioned, we do have some other events. So you can see on your screen there the entire DFT series of events that we have. So there is another webinar coming up next month, and then we also have a seminar in central London on the 19th of March. As with today's webinar, they are free to attend, so if you're interested, please do either book on or get in touch with myself and Dave at professionalatbreak.org.uk to find out a little bit more. We do also have other events coming up, so we've got one of our pledge webinars, which again is free to attend. And the pledge is our flagship campaign for engaging at-work drivers, regardless of your fleet size or type. And we have our annual Fleet Safety Conference coming up in May as well, which is a low-cost one-day conference looking at all sorts of different areas of fleet risk. So there are more details on the Brake Pro website, as I said, or if you get in touch with us at Professional at Brake, we can tell you more. I think that's it from me. I will hand you back over to Dave and the rest of today's speakers, and we hope you enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, Ellie. So first of all, I will pass over to Toby Poston from BVRLA. As I mentioned, any questions that you have for Toby during his presentation, then please do fill in the question box on your right-hand side, and I can put those questions to Toby whilst he presents. So over to you, Toby. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Dave. Hello, everyone. Thank you also for pronouncing that correctly. BVRA stands for British Vehicle Rental and Leasing Association. I'm delighted to get this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about us, the vehicle leasing sector, and give you some of our high-level advice on work-related road safety. So BVRA has been around for about 50 years now, based in Amersham in Buckinghamshire, and we support 3 key sectors: car and van leasing, car and van rental, and the commercial vehicle leasing and rental. We've got over 700 members, ranging from small family-owned rental operations that may have 3 or 4 vehicles up to the biggest single fleet in the UK, which is Motability, which runs over 600,000 vehicles. We represent all the major leasing companies and the vast majority of even the medium and small size ones. And really we're there to do what most trade associations do. Our key aim is to promote best practice and raise industry standards. But one of the reasons we're sort of slightly different from many other trade associations is that we actually regulate the industry as well. We do this via our mandatory code of conduct, and we also have a conciliation service that's for businesses and consumers. If you have a problem with one of our members, you can come to us and get a free independent conciliation service to help resolve any issues you may have. In terms of the size of the rental leasing sector, you can see here that it's nudging towards 4 million now, and that really means that our members are now accountable for roughly 1 in every 10 vehicles on UK roads. So that's 1 in 10 cars, 1 in 6 vans, and 1 in 4 trucks. So firstly, I thought I'd give you some context and just talk about work-related road safety at a very high level. These statistics are quite commonly shared. Apologies if you've seen them before, but I think they're quite useful just to summarise what we're talking about ahead of some more detailed stuff I'll go into a bit later on. Obviously 90% of collisions due to driver error or distraction, and company drivers are particularly at risk. I've got a repair bill there, a typical repair bill. You get lots of different estimates for what accidents cost, which probably aren't really that important. The important thing to emphasise is that costs, are a key focus for most businesses, and road accidents are a very unpredictable business cost. Quite often people don't think about some of the ancillary costs that also come into effect when you have an incident involving someone driving at work. And perhaps one of the key things I'd like to emphasise is the fact that really the industry needs to be more proactive. If you look at the actual total figure of how many vehicles there are on the road and how many of those are driven at work, the big challenge really is mindset. Why isn't work-related road safety more mainstream? Why isn't it higher up the agenda? I mean, we could talk about this for all week really, but I think it's an issue that probably needs to be debated more widely and looked at by both policymakers and governments and business in general. But in the meantime, I wanted to have a look at some more down-to-earth tips that every business can take into account. Road safety risk is often broken down into these sort of three simple areas, and under each of these I've got some sort of simple touch points that an employer can maybe have with the drivers. On the driver's side, you should maybe check that driver's qualified, and we should definitely check that driver's qualified and fit to drive. Are they comfortable using the particular vehicle they're being asked to use? And would they benefit from any sort of telematics to help make the journey easier to plan, easier to make? Would it reduce the danger of any distraction or delay? And can it help resolve potential driver errors? In terms of the vehicle, you should definitely be checking that the vehicle they're using is fit for purpose. Is it properly maintained, serviced and checked? Things like tyres, windscreens, windscreen wash, oil, AdBlue, which is coming into in with a lot of these new Euro 6 diesel engines. And for vans in particular, do employees really know how these vehicles should be loaded and operated? Finally, if we look at the journey, many accidents occur when drivers are stranded by the side of the road trying to link back to the garage, or maybe haven't planned their journeys properly. So what can we do to try and mitigate against any issues here? Now, the good news is there's lots of things you can, and lots of sources of sort of help and support if you're approaching this area with a blank page. You might want to look at driver policies, who drives vehicles, what they drive, how, when and where. There's lots of advice from the Health and Safety Executive and other web sources or consultants, and I'll go through a list of those later on. You want to look at accident management or breakdown management. This can really help reduce disruption when one of your drivers has an incident. This can involve providing administrative support, replacement vehicles, or even on-site repairs if possible, and it all saves time and money in the long run. License checking is a very important area. It's absolutely key that you check the driver's entitlement and ability to drive. These days you can automate the process and manage it so it's done legally in a compliant way. You can even automate it. You can even ensure that you've got more frequent checks on drivers that may have a certain amount of endorsements or have a poor accident record. Training can be classroom or online based, but it's important to make it appropriate. Telematics, this can vary from the sort of basic level of sat-navs that provide journey and traffic advice, but it can also be a more advanced level. Then you can have telematics that gives key data on speed, brake use, routes that are used, and we're increasingly also seeing that we're getting app-based smartphone telematics that can really help win hearts and minds, especially when you get some of these apps that are sort of gamified and really encourage drivers and get their competitive spirit into trying to modify their driver behaviour. Now, a good place to start is just getting a third party to look at your car systems and drivers. This can vary. You can look at there's plenty of free online audits you might want to look at, or you can actually get some independent help in and pay for that. The good news is that leasing companies or brokers can also provide and manage all of these pieces of advice and support and roll it into a regular monthly payment. Don't assume that this is only available for large fleets. I picked out this just particular case study that has been highlighted in some of the fleet press, where Volvo, who obviously pride themselves on being one of the world's safest car, or producing one of the world's safest ranges of cars, they've developed this interesting proposition for SME business customers. It's free of charge for all businesses buying or leasing a new Volvo. And you can see that it includes quite a few nice little additions that can help you make it simpler to sort of manage your road risk. And again, this sort of scheme could be replicated by many other leasing providers as part of a wider fleet management package. I thought this would be an interesting slide to share with you. This was a survey we did last year amongst large fleets, just asking them where safety sat in the hierarchy when they're making a vehicle choice. We asked them what the current hierarchy was and where they think it would be in the future. And I think you might be surprised about it or not, but I think it's quite interesting, and it shows where safety features on that list. We believe it should be higher up, especially due to some of the exciting new safety technologies that are increasingly being rolled out into new cars. And we obviously, with over 90% of collisions being due to driver error or distraction, technology can play a massive role. It's already played a huge role in reducing the number of UK road deaths from 7,000, over 7,000 back in the 70s to well under 2,000 now. The trouble is that a lot of these technologies take time to filter through to the mainstream, like electronic stability control has. They often, if they're not fitted as standard, they often involve an extra cost. And we also asked when we did this other survey what people were willing to pay for this extra technology. And again, you can see that well over half of companies felt that this stuff should be fitted as standard. And then quite a few, in addition to that, felt that they weren't really willing to pay a lot more to have this stuff fitted. So we'd obviously urge more businesses to insist on these technologies, even if they do come at an extra cost. If you factor some of these additional safety technologies into a typical 3 or 4 year lease, it probably end up costing no more than £5 to £10 extra a month, which isn't a lot to pay for that extra peace of mind. Well, that's me done. I've just put a quick list together outlining some of the very useful web links that we always pass on to members and their customers and have found useful in the past. There's plenty of free tips and advice on these websites. If you go onto the BVRLA website, we can tell you more about what we do. We've also got a useful directory of rental and leasing companies there, advice on how to deal with our members and why you should always look for the BVRLA logo. So thanks for your time, and happy to take any questions.
Hi Toby, thank you very much for that presentation. That's brilliant. I've just got a quick question there. You're talking about the different technology that's being implemented into vehicles now, and obviously there seems to be more all the time now. I mean, what would you say is the biggest or kind of most exciting development that's happening for vehicles at the moment that's going to be, make a big difference for safety?
You're right. It can get quite confusing that you get a lot of these technologies that come out and they all have different names, proprietary names, depending on the manufacturer. But the one that we definitely support and we think is gaining headway is autonomous emergency braking. This has got widespread support from people like Thatcher, which is the research body behind the insurance industry. And this is obviously it does what it says really, where it sort of helps prevent a lot of those sort of low impact but real high cost accidents you get where you run into the back of someone at traffic lights or in slow moving traffic, or that involve pedestrians in sort of heavily pedestrianised areas. It's been proved to be very effective, and it's increasingly getting fitted as standard on fleets, but still only about 20–25% of cars come with it as standard. So this is one of the key areas that we think fleets should be looking to fit. And we know that insurers like it, and that quite often it can lead to a reduction in your insurance premium if you do.
Yes, indeed. Yourself says, and obviously here at Brake, we're obviously keen for people to look at these things for safety measures. But at the end of the day, it can also save companies a lot of money in the long run as well. So even if it's a case of getting company buy-in, then that's definitely a factor for them to consider as well. I've got a question here. As I mentioned previously, if you do have any questions for Toby, then do please feel free to use the question box on the right-hand side and leave your questions for Toby. If not, there will be an opportunity afterwards, if you do have any questions, to send them, and we can easily forward those on to Toby. Becky Smiles has asked, what is your guidance for recovery and breakdown?
Recovery and breakdown, I don't know actually off the top of my head. I can forward that to you, Becky. Happy to do that. I think different companies have different standards. Obviously, we just think that recovery and breakdown is obviously an important one. As I said before, you don't want people either nervous about trying to limp home in a vehicle because they don't know what the arrangements are, or standing by the side of the road, wondering what number they need to call or what they need to do next. So it's definitely important to have a policy there. It's increasingly rolled into most lease agreements or fleet management agreements now, and it's something that should definitely be part of any road safety policy you've got in your organisation. But happy to provide you some more examples that we may have in our fact sheets or guidance.
Brilliant. Yes, thank you very much. And Becky, I'll forward your email address to Toby, and Toby, yeah, if you can help, that would be great. Well, we don't have any more questions at the moment for you. So unless you have anything else that you would like to add in particular, Toby.
No, that's it.
Right, well, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Sorry, do appreciate your help, and thank you for that really interesting presentation. As I mentioned, if you do have any questions for Toby and you've not had a chance to put them to him now, then do feel free to email us at the end of the webinar, and we'll be able to pass those on to him. So next we have Sandra Brandon, who is talking from the DVSA, and I will hopefully pass over to Sandra, who will talk us through her presentation. Hi, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Dave. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sandra Brandon, and thanks for inviting me to talk to you today.
You might just need to share your screen, Sandra.
Sorry about this.
No, that's fine. It's
You got it now?
it's the ways of technology. Yep, so we can see that. Yeah, brilliant, ideal. Thanks very much, and over to you. Thanks, Sandra.
Okay, my name is Sandra Brandon, and I'm currently part of the stakeholder management team for DVSA. I'm responsible primarily for light commercial vehicles, but I'm going to talk to you today about the responsibilities on keeping your vehicles safe on the road. I will cover who we are, what we do, and information we provide that will help you in maintaining your vehicles and keeping them compliant and on the road. The Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency was formed when former VOSA and DSA merged. DVSA are now responsible for all the work carried out by these two agencies. For example, annual testing of HGVs at our stations and authorised testing facilities, carrying out roadside inspections of vehicles and enforcing relevant standards, responsibility for managing the 21,500 private MOT garages within the MOT scheme, and monitoring bus operators to ensure maintenance and punctuality are adhered to. We are also responsible for driving tests carried out across the country and the assessment of testing examiners, using available evidence to review and improve driving standards, and we continue to support the driver CPC, including checking all at the roadside that relevant training has been kept up to date. The DVSA and the Traffic Commissioners are not the same organisation, but much of the work carried out by the DVSA goes to the Traffic Commissioner to aid them in making decisions when issuing or reviewing operator licences. Operators have to adhere to certain undertakings, such as things like agreeing to maintain vehicles at appropriate levels, including carrying out walk-around checks, following the driver's hours rules, ensuring that they have sufficient funds to maintain and run their fleets. Traffic Commissioners issue operating licences to vehicle operators based on these undertakings that the operator has agreed to. The requirements for heavy vehicles are laid out in the DVSA publication Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness, which is available on our website and is free. Although the guide is mainly aimed at heavy vehicle operators, the majority of the information is just as applicable to smaller vehicles. There have been recent changes in the guide. These include evidence collected from the roadside and annual tests show that older vehicles have more problems due to wear and tear. Therefore, the inspection frequency required for these vehicles and trailers aged up to 12 years or more has been set at no more than 6 weeks. Safety inspections can now be mileage or time-based, or a combination of both, based on the use of the vehicle. This gives greater flexibility to the operator. Again, these rules can be applied to the smaller operator. The inspection facilities that operators are required to provide or have accessible to them should be adequate for the job. Things to consider are undercover accommodation for the largest vehicle in the fleet to enable inspection in all weathers. Under vehicle inspection facility, this could be a ramp or a pit. Operators of vehicles should be able to show that the brakes are working correctly. and this should include checking with a roller brake tester. This could be a roller brake tester or a decelerator, more often than once a year at annual test. The guide advises at least 3 times in addition to the annual test. What has happened, what we have found at the roadside during the last year has been quite substantial. We have stopped over 155,000 vehicles this year, 33,000 HGVs with serious mechanical defects and driving offences, 17,000 trailers with serious mechanical defects, over 3,200 PSVs with serious mechanical defects and driving offences. On top of this, we also stopped 11,000 light commercial vehicles with an 89% prohibition rate. This is where the vehicles are that bad they cannot continue on their journey. These vehicles also fail the first time at MOT are at over 50%. A lot of these defects could have been picked up by the driver if the vehicle had been checked before use. This slide shows you the top 3 issues for HGV, PSV and trailers at the roadside, which could cause serious damage if involved in incidents on the road. They include brake systems for HGV, the condition of the tyres, indicators and hazard warning. For PSVs, it's seat belts, driver and passenger doors, and again brake systems. For trailer, again brake systems and components, suspension and tyres. Looking at these defects, I think you will all agree that many of them should have been spotted by a competent driver carrying out a check prior to setting off. All vehicles must be roadworthy to avoid prohibition and that leads to costs that you have not expected and possibly issues with the authorities. Although so far we have mentioned heavy vehicles, a prohibition can be issued equally to light vehicles, and our examiners do carry out checks. The top 5 defects found on light vehicles are windscreens, tyres, engines and exhaust, wheels, transmission. Once again, these faults should be in the main have been spotted by the driver. There is a pull-out version of a walk-around check in the middle of the Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness, and it can also be downloaded off our website once again at www.gov.uk. There is also a leaflet for light vehicles at the same website, and we have films showing the walk-around check on YouTube for HGV, PSV and light vans. DVSA and the Traffic Commissioner do not expect all drivers to be qualified mechanics, but should be able to do a walk-around check of the vehicle and spot obvious faults. Report them to ensure that they do not take defective vehicles out on the road. In the light vehicle MOT scheme, there are approximately 21,500 private vehicle test stations that carry out MOTs and are subject to checks by our vehicle examiners. They employ around 55,000 testers to inspect over 28 million vehicles. Over 3 million of those vehicles are light commercial vehicles. The fail rates are seen here, with the worst failure rates for vans, worrying that this hasn't improved much in recent years and a similar trend was being found at roadside checks, which begs the question, do drivers view their vans as a tool for the job instead of a mode of transport? The cold hard facts are 85% of what is found at the roadside could have been picked up by a walk-around check. You can find everything you need to help you in this way on www.gov website. All our manuals and guides explaining the standards required, frequent newsletters to inform the trade of any changes and updates, DVSA alerts. Signing up means you can get an email alert as soon as there is a change, and it is free. There are also videos on YouTube to visualize the type of checks expected. And if you need anything else, please contact me following this presentation. Everyone has a responsibility to use the road safely, and there has even been talk about having vulnerable road user element to become a compulsory part of the driver CPC training going forward. What do you think? I am sure this will raise some debate. Thank you for listening this afternoon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sandra, and if you can hold on for some questions. So as with Toby, if you have any questions at all for Sandra, it's brilliant that we do have somebody from the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency available today, so do make use of Sandra, and I think she has a colleague on standby with her as well. So if you do have any questions at all, then do please type them into the question box or raise your hand. First of all, Sandra, with regards to the stat there that you said about 85% of the faults could have been detected just by simple walk-around checks, why is it, or why do you think it is that so many do have these simple failings, and why people aren't necessarily doing the walk-around checks, or if they are, they're not picking up on these faults? Is it a case that they're unaware, or is it just a time matter, or costs that businesses aren't factoring in, time into their daily routine for their drivers? I mean, has there been any kind of feedback on why it's such a high percentage of these that are just being missed, which could be found very easily?
I think the problem is they either don't do the checks, or they don't know who to report it to, and yes, the time is a factor. Unfortunately, they do feel that just doing a simple walk-around check is going to take time off their contract that they've got on for that day, so they feel probably that it's not an important thing to do. But if our guys pull you over at the roadside and you haven't done it, they will be asking you to show information that you had done that walk-around check that day. And then it goes back, it has a knock-on effect going back to the company as well. The company also might not be aware that the driver's not carrying out his walk-around check, but it could be part of the program that he is supposed to do. But a lot of the faults that we are finding were simply just a look could have been picked up by the driver, and should have been in a lot of the instances.
Yeah, and a lot of companies that we work with, as Ellie mentioned earlier, I think it's about kind of your policy as well, and what you have as a company in place of making sure, as Sandra said there, that drivers are aware of the checks that they should be doing, but also that whether there's random checks from higher up, that these checks are being made, just so that there's some sort of log, because as you say, if these haven't been spotted, then it might be a case, and a worst case scenario, if a crash or an incident happens as a result of a defect on these vehicles, then the police could soon come knocking on that company, and we'll want to see records kept of certain checks. So whether you're a business with lots of HGVs, or you've got a handful of cars, it's just as important to make sure that these checks are being made. The other thing, Sandra, there as well, there seems that there's a 50% fail rate on MOTs for vans. And you said this seems to be a similar trend. Why vans in particular, do you think, are particularly kind of bad at failing MOTs?
I think the main thing for this is, compared to the HGV side of things, vans are not under the same legislation. They basically are run the same way that your car is every year. But my question to a driver would be, you wouldn't put your family in a car that wasn't safe, so why would you get into a van that wasn't? And this is one of the things that's close to my heart, is I'm trying to get drivers to understand that their vehicle is not a tool. It is part of they need it to get to work. If it's off the road, they can't go and do their job. It goes to their reputation as a business. So it's all these things they need to consider. That the difficulty we have is there is no legislation to say that these people, smaller businesses, have to do this, so therefore they don't. They usually use the MOT as a way of somebody telling them what is wrong with their vehicle, to get it fixed, to get it back up and running and on the road. but you have to remember the MOT is a minimum standard, and therefore things like a walk-around check, having a look at your vehicle on a daily basis is much better than actually just taking it for test once a year.
And it obviously depends on what mileage you're doing as well. If you're doing a lot of mileage on that vehicle, then a few months after your MOT, then certain aspects that, like you say, a minimum requirement that pass an MOT will be redundant a few months down the line. A question's come in from Richard Pegler. He says, would you agree that if CPC is needed for a fleet or minibus drivers, then an operator's license would also be needed?
Could you repeat the question, sorry?
Yeah, no worries. I think whether I read it right. So it's basically saying, would you agree that if CPC is needed for fleet or minibus drivers, then an operator's license would also be needed?
I'll leave that one to Ian for you to answer that one. It's not my...
It's an interesting point. Certainly it's not something that's required at present, but also the things that we spoke about today are also things that aren't legislative requirements, but they are in your driver's best interest to do that, which is why we've said if you look towards some of the rules that are explained in the Guide to Maintaining to Roadworthiness and the other publications we've got, although they might not be legally applicable as such as yet, they are in the operator's best interest to follow some of that guidance.
Is that okay for you?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Hopefully that goes some way to answering your question there, Richard. I mean, as Ellie mentioned earlier, as part of Break, we obviously do share best practice and do share some advice from the DVSA, and their website's definitely worth viewing to have a check. And as Sandra said, a lot of their tools and videos are free and to use and are very useful. And obviously with the thousands of companies that we work with as a charity to try and prevent crashes happening in the first place, there is a lot of best practice that we share, and obviously companies that we already work with who have implemented certain policies into their business and prove that it can be done. So I think Sandra's message and the message out there is kind of not doing the bare minimum just to as a box ticking exercise. It is obviously taking vehicle safety very seriously, not only for your business but obviously for your driver's safety as well, and the safety of other road users. Thank you very much for your time, Sandra, and Ian as well. Thank you very much for your presentation today. We appreciate that very much. So next we have Teresa Keeble from TMJ Interiors, and I will now hand over to Teresa.
Hi there, good afternoon everybody. Thank you, Dave. He says, my name's Teresa Keeble. I'm a health and safety manager for a company called TMJ Interiors. We are a joinery company based in Suffolk. I'm obviously pleased, like everyone has, to be given the chance today to pass on some best practice information for you, really promoting our story with regards to safe vehicle maintenance, and I'm going to touch a little bit on FORS, which is the Fleet Operators Recognition Scheme, which we've been involved in quite heavily over the last couple of years. So hopefully today, obviously, my presentation is going to give you all an insight into a bit what we do and obviously the benefits that this has brought to us as a business. Oops, bear with me while I try to attempt to change the screen. Okay, so a little bit about our business. You'll see from the slides there's a few bits. We have a large 50,000 square foot factory, like I say, based in the middle of Suffolk. You can sort of drive past us and hardly notice that we're here. We were set up in 1981 by James Taylor, who is our MD and has been since obviously the business was started. We have our FORS Gold accreditation. Like I say, I'm going to cover that slightly in a little bit more detail. We have approximately 130 employees. 4 of those are employed drivers, We don't actually have any drivers that are agency. They are all actually employed. Again, and I'll cover some more details on that in a little bit. Basically what we do is we're a high-end joinery manufacturer. Like I say, even though we're based in Suffolk, 99% of our work is actually in London. So we have our facility here and we make and produce all the joinery, and then our drivers actually deliver it to our sites in London. We work on high-end residential, commercial fit-out, financial fit-outs, those sorts of things. So our drivers and our driving element is a very, core part of our business. Obviously, without our drivers, then we wouldn't be able to get our product, out to our clients. Just a little sort of a family tree of how our company is actually managed there. Like I say, James is actually still our MD. We have a board of directors and then a team, like I say, approximately about 130 members of staff. So I'm going to do a little bit about FORS, really, because this is how, as a business, we actually started paying a lot more attention to the transport element of our business. Like I say, even though we've been going over 30 years and we've always had vehicles, always been very good at health and safety, the transport element and our vehicles was something that we had never overly concentrated on, probably as much as any of the other aspects of our business. But like I say, it's not until you start doing some of these things that you realise without our transport element, then we probably wouldn't have as much of a business, because we would have to hire vehicles, costs would be higher, etc. So I'm not sure, obviously, with the people that are actually listening into the webinar, if any of you are familiar with FORS or your companies are actually registered and then accredited to the scheme. So forgive me if you are, but for those of you that aren't, FORS obviously stands for the Fleet Operators Recognition Scheme, and it's an accreditation scheme that's been initially set up by Transport for London, obviously to do with all the cycle deaths that have happened over the last few years in relation to the HGV and construction vehicles that have unfortunately been linked to those incidents. So at present, FORS is actually subsidised by TfL. It's a voluntary system that's open to any company that operates fleets, and this does actually include vans, lorries, minibuses and coaches. So it isn't just for construction vehicles. It does cover the whole aspect of transport. The accreditation, it can actually help you and has done for us. Tenders for business, it can save you money, and it improves safety and reduces your environmental impact. Obviously, the biggest element for us has actually been the improvements in safety. You also, as an accredited company, get access to a wide range of benefits. For example, like I think Toby discussed in his presentation, there's a bit about driving licence checks. Now, as a business, we actually have all our driving licences professionally checked by a company, and because we're a FORS member, we actually get a discount on that. So it does actually, come with quite a few benefits. Okay, so FORS is split into 3 sections. So you have bronze, silver and gold, and like any accreditation scheme, there are a number of criteria that as a business we need to meet to show evidence. So the same as, for example, we have our 18001 standard, our 9001 for quality. You have a list of criteria, the auditor comes in every couple of years, you have to prove evidence that you can actually meet all those criteria and basically show that our business is safe. We're gold accredited, like I say, but we still have to meet the criteria set up in the bronze and silver level. Bronze level is where the majority of the criteria is actually set, and it's with regards to the management of the vehicle and road safety part of our business, the vehicles, the drivers and the operational elements of that. Now, obviously, I could chat for hours, but I'm going to concentrate a weeny bit on the vehicle element. So some of the criteria, and this isn't a definitive list, there is obviously a few more bits on there, but for example, we have to prove and show we have an inspection and maintenance plan for all our vehicles. All our drivers actually carry out their first use checks on a daily basis. We have a fuel and tyre log a usage log, so it logs all the fuel we use, how often we're having tyres. But again, all of these things tie into things that Sandra was saying and the bits and pieces that are required from their point of view as well. Obviously, we have to ensure that we have the right licences. We've got an O licence for our business, but also that the vehicles are taxed and insured correctly. We have to ensure that there's safe loading of our vehicles with regards to vehicle manoeuvring, how we get our pallets of materials on and off the vehicles, whether that be in the factory here or when we actually get onto site. Like I say, this is just a few of those items. The Ford's website is brilliant, and there is a lot more details on there if it's something that you are then interested in doing. A couple of things just to cover on regards to our drivers. We obviously have our CPC. All our drivers have covered those. They've just finished their first 5 years, now starting on their next. But one of the biggest things for us, mainly because of where we're actually delivering all our materials, and we are driving in London, and we are big lorries. We've got an 18.5 tonne and a 12.5 tonne truck. So, we're big vehicles on the roads. We actually put all of our drivers through the Safe Urban Driving CPC. Now, this is where they spend a morning in the classroom doing, the general paperwork elements, but in the afternoon they actually get out on a cycle and they cycle around the streets of London to understand what it is actually like being a cyclist with the construction vehicles and larger vehicles around. So I would recommend to anybody to actually have their drivers do this part of the CPC. We did it over and above their 35 hours. They didn't. We felt it was important that they carried on doing the 35, but this was important to us as a business that they did that. As it stands at the moment, I believe it's free. You can find information on the TfL website about that. Okay, so our story with regards to the Fords, a couple of years ago, back in 2013, one of our main contractors stipulated that any subcontractor delivering to their sites had to be accredited to Fords. We had to meet these criteria. If we didn't, then we wouldn't allow to deliver to their site. We could turn up in the vehicle and they'd say, no, sorry, you're not Fords accredited, we don't want you here. You've not met the criteria, we don't believe, how can we know that you're doing all those things to keep vulnerable road users and yourselves safe? So we achieved our bronze accreditation in July 2013. We were lucky enough a year later, or just under a year later, to achieve our silver, and then a couple of months later actually achieved our gold. And at the time, we were probably one of around 20 out of about 4,000 companies registered. Now, bearing in mind our size, and as you'll see from the screen, the size of our fleet, we actually only have 6 vehicles. We have company cars and grey fleet, but in comparison to the likes, for example, of John Lewis, for example, who I know are another Ford's Gold company, they must have hundreds and hundreds of vehicles on the road, and we have three or four at any one time. So to achieve the gold for us, it's obviously a massive task, a massive achievement, sorry. Okay, we have a transport manager. Again, even though we are small, but we take it very seriously. We have a transport manager that runs the day-to-day activities that the drivers all report to of a morning and an evening. You just have to excuse me for unfortunately on the screen it never comes out as great, but the driving checks that are carried out by the drivers, again, Sandra mentioned these are part of what we have to do to meet the criteria and everybody else's. The drivers every day, they will tick all the items listed on there. If they've got any defects, then they're reported to our transport manager straight away. Now, in the next couple of months, we are going to be trialling smartphone app. There is a new system where you can actually do these on a smartphone, so we are going to be trying to get our drivers up on the technology front and see if it will work. Not sure at the moment if it will, but fingers crossed. One of the other things I did mention was the vehicle maintenance plan. Again, forgive me for the copy, but like I say, David's going to be sending out copies, and I'm more than happy to email a better PDF version to people if they wish. This really just covers all the vehicles we have over the period of year and all the items that we need to cover. So, for example, we've got tail lifts on all of our vehicles, so they actually have to have the Lola inspections, so we need to ensure that they're carried out. The tachograph calibrations, the MOTs, the pollutions, the Euro 6 information that's required, and also we cover all our grey fleet. Now all the information is on there, and then we sort of tick it off. We use Microsoft Outlook, you know, the calendar system, and we have constant calendar reminders that come up, so we ensure that we don't miss anything and that our fleet is managed and as safe as we can possibly have every single time it goes out on the road. Like I say, we can have up to 4 vehicles on the road at any one time, normally 3 or 4 days a week. So, you know, we're a big factor of the vehicles in London and all over. So we need to ensure as a business that we are safe. So really that mainly concludes the points that I wanted to cover. And really then sort of handing back to Dave, and if there are any other questions that anybody has.
Thank you very much, Teresa, for that. I think that's really interesting to see from a business perspective, especially for someone with, you know, quite a, like you say, a small number of vehicles actually out on the road, but to achieve such a high standard is great. You also mentioned there about your grey fleet as well. Do you do that's all included as well, and you do the similar checks for those as well?
Yes, we do. The grey fleet tends to be actually used by our senior management team, so they also do, you know, the checks that they need to do. To be honest, the majority of the time they are normally only just driving to work and back, but there is obviously the time when they're going out to see clients, you know, and various people. So yes, they do the checks as well.
Becky Smiles has helpfully said, have you registered as a fleet with the DVSA so that you can use the VVR system once it's launched? She says the VVR system will allow you to track the test and tax dates for your fleet.
I haven't actually. No, it's not something that I've heard about. Whether it's something that our transport manager has done, it's a bit of a random one really, because I'm the safety manager, but we've also got a transport manager, but because there was such a crossover in the safety and the transport, that's where I've got my involvement. So I try to have him run the actual day-to-day stuff, and then I stick my 2 pennies worth in when he needs a bit of advice on the safety front. So and I think maybe I'm a little bit more organised when it comes to making sure that, you know, things are sorted and stuff. So but no, I will have a chat to him when we're finished and see. So, but thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no, thank you for highlighting that, Becky, for other attendees as well. That so this is basically saying the DVSA have a VVR system. You know, once it's launched, and saying that system will allow you to track and test and tax dates for your fleet.
Okay.
With regards. So with regards to your business, I mean, is there anything that you feel you've had to overcome as a smaller business compared to a big, you mentioned kind of John Lewis and other, you know, companies that have hundreds of vehicles on the road. Do you feel there's any kind of obstacles that you've had to kind of overcome as a smaller business? Is anything in particular kind of been a bit more difficult for you, or you found it a bit more difficult to kind of get done?
I can't say overly. To be honest, I think we're probably in a way quite unique, that because of almost like the family element of our business, you know, like I say, our drivers are employed. We don't use agency drivers, so everybody's known to everybody. There's always going to be an element of buy-in, you know, trying to get the guys to our drivers, you know, been drivers for years and all, you know, like any health and safety or, you know, element of work like that. It's like, oh, I've done it like this for years. Why do we need to do it? I can't say that there's been anything particular, just really everybody's buying and making sure, even though we did everything, but just really that we documented it, made sure we were, you know, as clean as we could be in producing paperwork should it be needed, and that sort of thing really.
I think you mentioned there about kind of driver buy-in, and sometimes that can be an obstacle, as well as getting kind of company buy-in from up above as well to kind of take safety seriously. With regards to the drivers, then, how do you persuade them to make sure that they were definitely doing all the checks and filling in the correct paperwork and making sure that everything was up to date? Was it just a case of kind of writing it into their day-to-day activity and kind of highlighting how important it was, or had you had any kind of incidents or anything to kind of use as an example?
No, to be honest, the guys would always do it. I think some of it was more our internal management of it. Like probably most companies, we had a lady who was in the office. She used to do all the paperwork, but then she retired. We then had, you know, we actually promoted someone to actually be a transport manager, so that it was more of a responsibility for the one person rather than just somebody who did admin in the office, which then really sort of tied it all together. The guys, the drivers have always been really, really good. There's always that element that you sort of think, you know, come on guys, you need to be a little bit better. We have regular sort of, tend to be every 6 weeks, meetings where we sit down with the guys, have a chat about bits and pieces. Have they had any issues, any problems with any of the sites that we're working on, and try and involve them as much as we can, like with any staff in safety activities, to ensure that we're not just dictating to them and just actually making sure that we're getting their buy-in because they realise the benefit, because they've probably sort of come up with the idea themselves.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. We've got another question that's come in from David Jones saying, as the scheme is supported by TfL, do companies have to have work in London to help with the scheme, to get help with the scheme?
No. Well, I say no. As my understanding was at the time, and I believe that in the last couple of weeks, the scheme has actually been taken over by a company called AECom, still with TfL as sort of like a silent person in the background, obviously ensuring that everything's managed correctly. The whole point, I think, of that is to make companies throughout the company realise that it is such a good idea, and it doesn't really just affect businesses in London. I think, you know, the unfortunate thing is we always see on the news that there's been an incident with a cyclist and a construction vehicle, but they always tend to be from London. But I'm sure there's other cities in the country, excuse me, that have the same issues. You know, it's not just in London. So I believe that's why the company has it has been given out to another company to manage, so that it can be taken countrywide rather than just limiting it to London, you know, for that reason. I know that, for example, when, as part of the FORS, there's a whole load of workshops and bits and pieces, and they were being run in Newcastle and Birmingham because, you know, they felt that there was a need to trial it in bigger cities, just out, you know, from London to begin with, and then the whole concept was going to be, you know, it isn't just a London issue, it must be a countrywide issue. So I believe that it is something that is going to be rolled out nationally, yes.
Yeah, and it's great to have that. And as we mentioned earlier, everyone who's obviously attended this we're signing up and become a member of Break, and we do have some guidance reports on particular on vulnerable road users and in particular companies like yourself at TMJ who obviously do take it seriously with cyclists. And you mentioned there about kind of the cycle round London is something that as Break that we've companies have got involved with us in the past doing a kind of a swap, and especially with Road Safety Week that we have each year to kind of highlight that that aspect of you know, seeing it from different perspectives from the cyclist point of view, as well as being that HGV driver who does sometimes have limited views around their vehicle. But thank you very much, Teresa. Really appreciate your time today. So thank you very much for your time and for everybody else today. So as mentioned previously, on your screen now you should hopefully see the other events that we have coming up. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar, which is part of our Fleet Safety Engaging Small Businesses with Big Issues, which has kindly been supported by the Department for Transport. So we have another webinar taking place on Thursday, the 12th of February 2015. I know a lot of you who are attending today have already registered for that, but if not, please do so soon, and we will send an email later on today or tomorrow about that. And also we actually have a seminar in London, 11 till 4 on Thursday the 19th of March in central London. So it would be great if as many of you can attend that. Again, that is free to attend, thanks to the Department for Transport. So as I mentioned, this webinar has been recorded and the presentations will be available afterwards. You'll also get an automated email with just a few questions about feedback. We'd really appreciate it if you can just take a few seconds to fill in the feedback, just so we can keep that on record, and appreciate your time today. So I'd like to thank all our speakers again who have given up their time this afternoon to go through the different aspects of buying, leasing and maintaining safe vehicles. I hope you found this very useful. If you have any questions at all, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with Brake. And as my colleague Ellie mentioned, you'll all become members of Brake Professional, and we will get in touch with you soon to sort that out, and hopefully we can help you with your business over the coming year. Thank you again, and have a safe rest of the day.